All right, we're going to finish up money, which we were partly into the other day. And then, like I mentioned just a second ago, we're going to drop back and look at an example of supply and demand that I don't think we've talked about. And since we have that extra time, we're going to go back and talk about the interest rate, which is really just a special case of supply and demand. The interest rate is the price of money, and it's regulated by supply and demand, just like everything else. So we'll go back and look at that. We're going to very quickly here get into the Federal Reserve and how the government likes to meddle with the interest rate, which the free market and supply and demand, they will regulate that thing all by itself. It's old enough. It has the proper licensing and certification. It can do it all by itself. But the government steps in and meddles with it, and it causes problems, just like we mentioned problems with housing and other places where the government tries to step in. So anyway, we're going to go back and review supply and demand with interest after we finish up talking about money. So, all right, somebody give me a definition of money. No big terms, please.
Something that is expected everywhere for anything.
Yeah, something that's accepted everywhere for anything. You want to buy a new hat, you can take your money and buy a hat. You want to buy new shoes, you want to buy a new, I'm stuck on the Beretta 50 caliber, you know, with the tripod and the scope. Night vision, should we do night vision scope while we're at it? You want to buy that, you can take money and do it. You want to buy a new Porsche Carrera? Is that the right term? Anybody know? I passed a Porsche and it had a C, and I don't shop Porsches very often, so I'm not familiar with all the different kinds. Whatever the Porsche is. You want to buy that, you can take money and do it. A little bit more money than you need for the Beretta. Not a whole lot more, maybe, but a little bit more than you need for the Beretta. Something accepted anywhere for anything. We take it for granted how useful money is. In fact, actually, we talked about the functions of money last time, a medium of exchange. If you can imagine trying to do business without money. I was just watching a lecture, and he said you need a coincidence of interests without money. If you have a cow and you want a laptop, you've got to find somebody with a laptop that wants a cow. You got to, with money, you know, you sell your cow for money, and you go take the money and you buy the laptop, and the guy takes the money that had the laptop and he buys whatever he wanted to with it. All right, so it facilitates that exchange, and it really is hard for us to appreciate how much it facilitates that because we use it all the time. If you can just imagine, that'd be really fun. You go into Walmart and you fill your cart up with all the stuff that you need, and you bring a separate cart with all the stuff you wanted to trade, and you sit there with the cashier. Wow. If you think of some of the cashiers at Walmart, this would be an interesting conversation. All right, and you're bartering back and forth, and she's trying to decide what she'll take for your, you know. Oh, wow. That would be very painful. If we were bartering, there would be no Walmart because of this exchange would be so cumbersome. So, all right, so a medium of exchange, very, very useful. We talked about also it's a measure of value. It's how we assess value for things. We don't normally say this car is worth, or this laptop is worth 25 hours of my life. Right? Which isn't a necessarily bad way to think about it. Take your hourly wage and figure out how many hours you have to work to buy that thing. Sometimes that causes you to reassess whether or not you really want it, how much you need. But we don't typically do that. The dollar is an easy way to do that. And a means of storing wealth. All right, those are the three functions, the three duties that money should accomplish. So there's just two more things we need to talk about with money, and then we'll go back to supply and demand. The next thing is some qualities that money should have. Actually, I have some today. Right there. No, I'm not passing it out. Maybe later for an illustration, but I'm going to collect it back up. All right, qualities that money should have. All right, first thing is it should be constant in value. It shouldn't be continually changing. Our money is relatively stable. Yeah, relatively stable. But it should be relatively constant in value. I mean, there are places, Mexico 10 or 12 years ago had a whole bunch of inflation, and the peso was going crazy, and prices were just going up continually. And I mentioned before this, Germany. The same lecture I watched, the guy held up a German 20 note mark from about 14, I think it was, before all the crazy inflation. And he was pointing out how nicely it was printed, had different colors on it. And then he held up, I think it was a $1 million note mark from the mid-20s. I mean, they were just printing money like mad. And it looked like Monopoly money. It was only printed on one side, just this really simple design on it. They were printing so much of it that they couldn't take the time to really make it look nice. It was not constant in value. It was just the value was constantly diminishing. So constant in value, that is very important for the storing of wealth. You know, if you want to store some wealth, you don't want the item you pick to store it in to just continually fall off in value. So constant in value. Second thing, this is an idyllic position because we don't have it today. Intrinsic value. It should be worth something all on its own. Whatever we pick to use as money. There was a time in American history where you could take your dollar and go to the government and they would give you $1 worth of gold for it. I mean, it was literally backed by gold. The government only printed as much money as they had in storage. So everybody could take all of their money in and get gold for it. It was backed by gold. So we had pieces of paper that didn't have a whole lot of intrinsic value, but there was gold that was standing behind these. So money with intrinsic value is significant. What we have today is money with extrinsic value. It only has value because the government says it does, and that's all. I mean, this is as long as the U.S. government remains credible. Just imagine Hillary Clinton in charge. The picture of credibility. As long as it remains credible and people trust it, then the money is going to be worth something. But as soon as the U.S. government isn't credible, it is a worthless piece of paper. Right? Much like there was an old Andy Griffith show where somebody found I think it was some bonds in their grandmother's attic or something, and they got all excited because they'd been accruing interest for so many decades. And anyway, at the end, they realized it was in Confederate currency. So it was completely worthless. Just a piece of paper. That government structure was gone. So the pieces of paper that they had printed and said were money were then just pieces of paper. So anyway, intrinsic value. Intrinsic value, let's see what there. Should be easy to carry. Right? We put it in a wallet and carry it around. Gold coins have been used a lot in the past, so you can slide them in your pocket. The stones from the island of Yap in Micronesia, not so easy. Bells of tobacco, not so easy. Easy to carry, portable. All right, should be durable. It shouldn't just wither away to nothing. The bells of tobacco, they have they're not going to last forever if that's your money. You can't just dig a hole in your house and bury the tobacco in it. You could do that with gold, but with tobacco maybe not. So it should be durable, it should last. All right, the next one, there's a term here that I'll give you and then explain to you. So the idea is pretty simple, but I might as well give you the term since this is a college level class. I know you want the deep things. It should be assayable. A-S-S-A-Y-A-B-L-E. Assayable. Does anybody recognize that term? In the Old West, you might have heard him talking about going to the assayer's office or something like that with gold. Nobody. Okay. It comes, or at least I think of it, out of the mining realm, where somebody has this chunk of metal that they claim is gold, and they would take it to the assayer, and they would look at it and determine how pure the gold is, determine what it really is. All right. So our money should be assayable. By that is generally meant it shouldn't be easy to counterfeit, and it should be recognizable. All right. We look at this, and you say, oh, that's a $5 bill. You recognize it. Like the assayer would identify that, oh, that's real gold. It's not fool's gold. It's identify the grade of it. It's identifiable, so recognizable, and not easily counterfeited is what's generally meant by assayable. And we have all kinds of new features on our bills to make them more difficult to copy. Don't try it at home, please. It'll get you in big trouble. All right, assayable, not easily counterfeited and recognizable. And then the last one here, it should be divisible or available in smaller or different amounts. If our currency, imagine only having $1,000 bills. That means I'd have $4,000 right here. You guys might mug me on the way out. Don't do it under the camera, please. Do it. Wait till you get out. If we only had $1,000 bills, imagine how cumbersome it would be to go to Little Caesars. All right, I need, what would that be? 200 pizzas. And you couldn't buy just one pizza. It needs to come in different increments. So, if we had cows as our currency, it's hard to do half a cow. It's not very do beefs. Anyway. We could trade in ground beef. Okay, enough. Divisible. Our currency obviously is visible, available in different amounts. So a very, very useful characteristic or quality of money. Okay, questions about that? I mean, that's, I think as we think about those, some very natural, some things you might not have made that list, but as you see those, you think, yes, those are, makes sense that money should have those qualities. So, all right, last thing I'll talk about is our money, which I kind of already hit upon a little bit. Our money, as I said before, used to be backed by gold and silver, depending on the situation and the time. We had gold coins, silver coins. We had paper money that represented gold and silver. Somebody just this candy sale? Or it might have been last candy sale, I can't remember now. Recently, got a silver certificate. It looked like a dollar bill, but it was a very old bill that was still printed back when it was backed by silver. I mean, we're not going back 300 years. We're going back to the 60s. So not that long. But still, that was, it used to be that was backed by gold. I don't know what year the actual thing was, but the kid was saying, "Mom, this looks different." And the mom grabbed it and says, "Yes, that is different. Here's another dollar bill. We'll keep that, keep that one over here." But it used to be backed by gold or silver. I mean, that was literally, you could trade it in. It had intrinsic value. It does several things, but I think as much as anything, it limits how much the government can manipulate the currency. We're going to look at the Federal Reserve, hopefully start it today. But one of the big things they do is manipulate the currency, the amount of money out there in circulation. And I know from your perspective, you're thinking, well, what's the big deal? But it can have a major effect on things, and the government does this trying to encourage economic activity, trying to drive down interest rates or different things. They can meddle with this thing, and removing the dollar off of the gold standard open the door for that type of manipulation. So, okay, so it used to be backed by gold. Now it is not. Now we have money that is only valuable because the government says it is, by government fiat, just by government dictate. Keep taking my money out here. We have this statement on here. This note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. And what that means is the government requires you to take it, basically. It's legal tender. If I owe Jacob some money and I offer him this, he's got to take it. He can't say, no, I want gold or I want silver. It's legal tender. That's the idea behind legal tender. It's not just the government saying, yes, this is money. It's saying it's something that you have to accept if somebody offers it, basically. So it's legal tender. All right, but it's only valuable because the government says it is. We no longer have money backed by gold or silver. Does anybody know when we started stripping that backing away from our currency? One of the greatest presidents ever. He saved us from the Great Depression. Yes. If you remember from American history, I said the cause of the Great Depression was government meddling in the economy. And the solution was more government meddling in the economy. One of the things that was done was the dollar was pulled off the gold standard, so then they could manipulate even more into the economy. But anyway, started way back then. All right, questions on money? Sorry, I don't have a section here about how to make lots of it or anything like that. So you have to buy a very special printer for that. So. And we'll do that off tape, okay? So, all right. I do want to drop back and look at something. I added this to the supply and demand lecture. I thought it'd be worth reviewing that a little bit anyway, and then we'll talk about this special case. So if you want to go back to there on your computer, you can add this to that lecture, or if you're fortunate enough that you're taking notes by hand because you learn better, You just have to start a new section. So interest rates is what we're going to talk about today. Before we get to interest rates, though, somebody tell us what the laws of supply and demand are. We looked at definitions from different directions, but just somebody tell me something involving the laws of law of demand or the law of supply or the law of supply and demand stuck together or something. Something in that realm.
Law of demand is when the price of a good rises, the demand will fall. When the price of a good falls, the demand will rise.
Okay. If something you're wanting to buy gets cheaper, the Beretta 50 caliber, if they go on sale for $500. I didn't realize how excited you would get about that, man. We could live in Alaska, so maybe we could. But if those things if the price of those things drops, then I'm interested. I shouldn't always talk about guns, but I do. There's been several times where I get a flyer and say, "Oh, Lisa, this gun's on sale," and she's been foolish enough to say, "You should buy 2 of those at that price." She says, "That's a really good price. You should buy 2." I've held back, but I have been tempted. But anyway, the price dropped and the demand was increased. People wanted to buy it, and the opposite is true. Okay, so that there are some significant complications that we could talk about there, but don't think about those. All right, just think about the basics. The price of something goes up, you're going to buy less of it. The price of something goes down, generally speaking, you're going to buy more. There are exceptions. One that I think is funny or interesting, at least easy to see, the price of bowl game tickets is really high, but everybody buys them. Okay, so you could say, oh look, the higher we charge for the tickets, the more people came. So maybe Chesterton should charge $300 a seat. Okay, so there are others and factors involved. You might think of a particular item where it doesn't seem to make sense, and what's happened is there's other things involved. Right? So don't worry about the complications. Just do what economists say: all things being equal or everything being constant. If you don't factor in the other things, just the price going up, you're going to tend to want less of it. All right. What about on the supply side? What's going to happen if the price goes up or the price goes down? Amanda's not here, so we can't make fun of her. Well, she's not here, so we can make fun of her. Price of something goes up. The Beretta 50 caliber is selling for $10,000. What's that? Yeah. So $15,000. Let's get a good increase. What's going to happen to the supply?
They're going to not sell as many, so they're not going to make as much?
No.
Or am I backwards?
You're backwards.
They're going to make more.
They're going to make more. They're thinking, man, these are going for $25,000 or $10,000, which is $2,000 above the current price. Man, I'm going to make more of these, right? Because they're selling for more. All right, so their profit motive, which isn't evil, causes them to make more of that particular item. Okay, so the supply is going to go up. When the price goes up, the supply goes up. And you mentioned the demand is going to go the other direction. So those two opposite forces are going to bring that price to the fair market price all by itself. What happens if the price goes down to the supply? Christina's squeezing her eyes at me. More people going to buy it, that's the demand side. What about the supply?
There's going to be less supply.
Why?
Because they're buying them.
That's true.
But then the manufacturers want to make more, right?
Not if the price is low.
That's true. Okay,
The
yeah,
price
yeah.
dropped because not many people were buying.
Yeah, or there could be other factors. I mean, there might be other things involved. But it's just generally, if the price of something goes down, the manufacturers are going to make less of it. I mean, that's if Indiana. If your boss came to you and said, "Well, I've got 100 people waiting to get jobs here. I'm going to pay $2 an hour," your supply of labor is going to go down. You're not going to say, "Oh, sure, I'll come and work." You're not going to offer it. And manufacturers do the same thing. If the item they're making drops in price, they don't say, "Oh, let's make more of this because we lose money." They're going to quit producing it. So the supply is going to go down. At the same time, the demand is going to go up, and that will cause the price to head back to that balance point, all by itself, without the government waving its magic wand. All right, so that's the law of supplies and demand. Now let's think about the interest rate. All right, and here it gets tougher to think about, but it's the same exact thing. All right, when you think interest rate, you want to think price of money. It's just a price. If, who do I want to pick? Christina was making faces at me. So if she wants $1,000 for a year, the bank is going to charge her an interest rate. You know, they might say, okay, there's a 6% interest rate on this, so you're going to take $1,000 now, and next year you'll give the $1,000 back, and the cost would then be $60. All right, so it's the cost of money. That's all it is. Don't. I know it's tough to think about. You know, you're buying money with money, and you know sometimes the thinking gets weird. But just try to think of whatever's being bought here as some commodity, and the price you pay is marked in interest. If she wants to keep the money for 2 years, then she pays $60 for the first year, and depending on how it's set up, $60 for the next year. So it'd be $120 for the cost of money. Okay, so it's the cost of money. And if you think like that, then the interest rate regulates itself. And that is the proper way to think. I'm not trying to, you know, we're not with Alice in Wonderland in some crazy world. That's the proper way to think of it. The interest rate will regulate itself, you know, without outside help. The government is constantly meddling with this thing. But it will take care of itself all by itself. Let's think about it. What happens in a situation if the interest rate is really high? Let's say that the interest rate was 15%. You could go to the bank with your savings and plop it in a savings account, and you're getting 15% interest, as opposed to 0.15, or maybe 0.51 if you're doing good now. If you go to the bank and you want to borrow money, it's 15%. So you're going to pay $150 for that year with $1,000. What's going to happen to both the supply, the amount of money that people save, and the amount of money that people want to borrow? So think if you're the guy that has money you're wanting to save, what's going to happen? Jacob's throwing it in. Okay. You're going to save some money. You're going to put it in the bank for that 15% interest. And I put all my money in the bank. I won't eat next month. We put money in the bank. We're going to put more money. We're going to be incentivized to keep putting money in the bank because we're getting such a good return on it. Okay. What if you're Amanda wanting to expand her business? And you go to the bank for the loan and say, well, it's going to be 15%. Mary's saying, absolutely not. I mean, she's not going to borrow as much at the very least. Right? There's going to be a decrease in the demand for money. People are going to borrow less of it. So in time, we have lots of people putting money in the bank, few people taking money out. What will happen then to the interest rate? Everybody think for a second. In that case, we have the supply is bigger than the demand. More people saving than more people borrowing. Think about just in general what happens to the price when the supply is bigger than the demand. Jacob wants to answer, but he'll let everybody else think. The price will fall. The interest rate will come down all by itself. The government doesn't have to regulate it. If we did have 15% interest, we'd have Bernie Sanders talking about the evil banks ripping off the common people, and no, it'll take care of itself. In fact, it needs to take care of itself. If the interest rate is really high, that's telling the whole market. Now we don't think in these ways. You or me with my girls' candy, someone we get next week. We're going to take it to the bank or do something with it. I'm not there thinking the interest rate is high. The economy is telling me that there needs to be more savings. I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking the interest rate is high. I'm going to throw my money in there. But what economy-wide, what that is signaling is that there needs to be more money saved. Right? Just like if the price of some product goes really high, it's signaling to the manufacturers we need more of this item. So the interest needs to be left alone, so that people save money. It's telling us the economy needs savings. There's not enough there. In time, it'll take care of itself and balance it out. So, okay, what about the other direction? What about like we have today? The price of money, or the interest rate is really low. Right? My first mortgage in 2001 was 6 3/4. And at that point, they said, you'll never see anything close to that. They thought you just happen to hit the sweet spot. You got a great mortgage. Enjoy it. You'll never refinance. I've refinanced 3 times, and I'm down to 3 7/8. And I actually missed the bottom. I could have been down near more 3% if I'd waited another 6 months before I refinanced the last time. Right? What has happened is the government has continued to push down the interest rate artificially. Right? But in that situation, what does supply and demand tell us is going to happen? If the interest rate is really low, what happens to the supply? In this case, that'd be the individual people saving money. And what happens to the demand? People wanting to borrow money. Just do one.
It's not worth it to save it.
It's not worth it to save it. Yeah, I haven't looked recently, but it's maybe a 1% right now, or 0.91 or something. It's not. I have some money in savings, and they tell me I get this relationship bonus where it doubles the interest that I get, and it's instead of 25 cents, I get 50 cents interest. I'm like, woohoo! And I'm doing cartwheels in the living room. It's such a great deal. So I have a savings account and a checking account. They double the interest. It's minuscule. It's almost not even to be considered. All right, so there's no incentive to save. I mean, I almost do just as well leaving the money stuffed in my mattress or something like that, because there's no money to be made. So there's less supply. People aren't saving money. What about on the other side? What kind of demand is there for money? How many people are wanting to borrow money? Lots of people. I did it 4 different times. I got a loan, I got another loan, I got another loan, I got another loan. And it's just I paid off the one with I didn't just keep adding them up if you're wondering. But I kept going back and reborrowing money because the price kept dropping. And Amanda at that point was just, man, I can 3% interest, that's nothing. She builds a new warehouse or things like that. So, and again, right now the government has intentionally pushed that thing down. Really, it needs to just take its hands off of it, let it regulate it. All right, it's sending some very, very mixed signals there. But okay, does that make sense? Interest rate is just a price, and the free market through supply and demand will regulate that thing. All right, we have for the last 100 years plus now become accustomed to the government regulating interest. Right? And it doesn't work any better than the government regulating the price of cars or apartments or gas or whatever product you want to think of. It doesn't work. All right? It can't work. I mean, at best, they'll pick the right spot that the market would have put it anyway. But if that's as good as we can do, why not let the market do it? All right? All right. I might have already said this, but just in case, there is a natural level for the interest rate. If the government meddles, it will create problems. If it artificially monkeys with that thing, it's going to create problems. Like today, there's no incentive to save. Right, I've actually heard politicians talk about these greedy banks. They're not willing to give loans out. Well, maybe you should let the interest rate go back up so people want to save money. They create a problem and they complain about the banks responding in a sane way to the problem that they made. So there's a natural level, just like there's a natural level for everything else. That interest rate will hit a point where the amount of people wanting to save balances out as well as it can be the amount of people wanting to borrow. It's called the market clearing price. It'll hit that point. If things get out of whack, supply and demand will push it back to that point wherever it might be. Now that point, depending upon what's happening in the economy and other places, that point might move around. 1 year that market clearing price might be 7%. 10 years later it might be 5%. There would be some natural fluctuations as markets do adjust. But the market will take care of it. We don't need a government agency analyzing things and saying, oh, the market clearing price now is 5.25, not 5.5. The market will take care of it. So interest rates. Questions? I'm that good, or are you guys asleep? You didn't respond to any questions, so maybe you're asleep. All right. Hopefully, I don't know, maybe it's pie in the sky dream, but to me, Hazlett's lesson and the basic idea of supply and demand, if you can grasp those two things, you're going to be ahead of 98% of members of Congress, or at least further ahead than they're willing to admit. I mean, when you got Bernie Sanders wanting to give away free college, or Obama with his stimulus package, or whatever. I mean, none of it makes any sense. If you apply Hazlett by itself, it works, and then you can get a little more sophisticated with your discussion and talk about supply and demand and other things as you apply Hazlett, and you get even a more clear understanding. All right, there's kind of like universal principles that apply everywhere. Okay. back to where we were. We're going to go from money to supply and demand applied to the interest rate. Man, I can feel the excitement building. And now we're going to get even better. Talk about the Federal Reserve System. Please don't drool on your laptops. It's very bad for them. Federal Reserve System. All right, I'm going to give you a basic description. Well, here's my 3 points. I've got what is it? Literally, that's my first point. What is it? Or maybe you can put what it is if you don't want to put a question. What is it? What it be? If you want to. The second thing is how is it organized? Just a very brief sketch of this, the structure of this thing. And then the third point is how does it regulate or how does it control the economy? How does it manipulate with the economy? That part is sometimes where it, I don't know. It might blow over your head a little bit, but I'll give you some things to memorize. Maybe you can just memorize those. I don't think it's especially complicated to understand, but that's the part we have to think a little bit about how it manipulates things. How does it drive down that interest rate? How does it, we'll look at the three primary mechanisms that it does that with. So, okay, what it is, or what is it, what it be, what it am, what it were, no, okay. What is it? This is just my own definition. I've got a couple of points here for us to think about. Basically, it's a central banking system established in 1913. Maybe I should define a central banking system. We hear that word, but don't. It's a government-organized banking system. Now, the government, any banking system is going to have some government involvement. But this is a system where the government controls the center of the whole mechanism. You have the banks, the individual banks and things out here in the perimeter that deal with customers. And at the middle of it is this Federal Reserve System that's controlling things. We don't do a whole lot of personal transactions with the Federal Reserve System, unless you're a bank president or something. And if that's the case, we're going to charge you a little bit extra for your tuition. And we don't have to have that box in the foyer. You can pay it off. We don't personally deal a whole lot with the Federal Reserve, but banks do. All right. So anyway, it's a central banking system. It's a government organized kind of the middle hub of the whole system. So, all right. Second statement I have with what it is it serves as a bank for banks. And to me, that's a very, at least layman's way to think of the way this thing operates. It serves as a bank for banks. And in a very surface level, the things we do at a bank, banks do at the Federal Reserve. You need to borrow money because your cash reserves are low. You go to a bank. We don't talk in those terms. You need to borrow money because you're broke. You go to the bank. You need to borrow money because you're 2/3. Is that right for your school bill? It's got to be paid. If that's not paid, you go and get a loan for it. Right? If a bank gets in a position to where it doesn't have enough money, it goes to the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve floats them a loan. If the Federal Reserve operated like this in 1929, when Papa Dollar and Mama Dollar from It's a Wonderful Life were in existence, and George Bailey's there begging people, just take what you need. Your money's not here; it's in his house, her house, and it's in her house, and it's not here. I've loaned it out. Just get what you need right now. If they got in that position, they could have gone to the Federal Reserve and gotten more cash from them, and didn't give everybody back the money they wanted. All right. So anyway, kind of the things we would do at a bank, they do at a bank. Right? There are some technicalities where that doesn't hold true, but I think that at least for us, gives us enough of an idea. Most banks are part of this thing. If you're going to have, there's some government benefits, FDIC insurance, and other things you're required to be part of this, and but most banks are part of this system. So, all right, third thing here with what it is, or what is it? It, in theory, provides a stable and safe economy. In theory. According to the theory, we shouldn't have had recessions like in 2008 or the Great Depression, or on and on and on. It provides a safe and stable economy. You can go prior to the Federal Reserve and find depressions and recessions. Sometimes it's just a part of the natural business cycle. Most of the time it's because of the government at that point manipulating with things. We had some really, when we talk about crony capitalism today, there were some good examples from the past of wealthy businessmen buying a whole bunch of gold or silver, I think it was, and then convincing some congressmen to get Congress to pass a law buying a whole bunch of gold or silver so that the price would spike, and then they would sell their silver at the high price. I mean, and in the ensuing transactions, it upset some things, and we ended up with a recession out of it. So there's any of those recessions, it's the government meddling. The Federal Reserve just gives us more. So there will be natural ups and downs even without the government meddling. But this is like somebody trying to regulate the skating rink. Trying to make sure everybody's safe and nobody's fingers get run over, and by telling every individual skater what to do, right? That's just. I know some of your girls are thinking, "Wow, it'd be fun to try to talk that fast," but it's not possible. So, all right, so that's what it is. Second thing is a little bit of how it's organized. How is it organized? And here I've got three pieces of it to mention. The first is the Board of Governors. Most of the time, if you hear something about the Fed, the Fed raised interest rates, or the Fed did this, or the Fed, started processing open market transactions, or something like that, it's referring to this particular piece of the Federal Reserve System, the board. Most of the time, the board. A couple of bits and pieces about how this is done, or a little bit of the makeup of the board. The members of this board are picked by the president and approved by the Senate, just like the justices on the Supreme Court are picked right now with the current one in question. Same way, picked by the president, approved by the Senate. Right. There are 7 people on this board, and they are elected every 2 years. The president picks a new one. So they serve a 14-year term, but they rotate through every 2 years. A new one is picked. The thought there is to give the board some consistency. You didn't want them all replaced at the same time and a whole new mindset. Try to give it some consistency, and also to try to help the members think long term. I mean, they could do things that would make everything look really good next month, but tank it in 2 years. But as long as it looks good when they leave, then they're happy. Trying to make them think long term. So every 2 years, a new one's picked, which gives them then a 14-year term. And then the last thing is these guys are paid from the system. The Federal Reserve System pays them. They are not paid directly from Congress, which the original thought was that these people were meant to be independent of political control. They didn't want the president or congressman to be able to dangle in front of them a pay cut or a pay raise if they didn't do what they wanted. They didn't want that there. They wanted them to be independent of that type of pressure, much like judges are independent from that type of pressure. This is really kind of like talking about what's the least painful way to smash your hand in a press. I mean, the government shouldn't be doing this. All right, so in one sense, yeah, it is nice. At least they're not going to be just thinking about politics. But there's been cases where they have. On the other hand, it would be kind of nice when we get a conservative president in. You can imagine Ted Cruz in there, for him to be able to put all new 7 members on the Federal Reserve Board. Right? We wouldn't want Obama to do that. But anyway, there's this. It really is trying to figure out what's the best way to cut your finger off or something. This is something the government shouldn't be doing. So, all right, so that's how this board is organized. All right, the second thing, we have the Federal Reserve Board, or the Board of Governors, the Fed. The second thing is the Federal Reserve Banks. Federal Reserve Banks. There are 12 of these around the country. The country is split up into 12 districts. Each district has its own Federal Reserve Bank. I've never tried, but I've been told in the basement of these things there's pallets of cash, $20 bills and $100 bills. And there's a significant amount of security there as well. But all the money, if you go to your bank in town and you see them with fresh bills, it came from this bank. Ours for this area is in Chicago. So every bank in the entire region, its currency, the actual physical paper money, comes through that bank. So they would have a lot of it there. And all the old bills that are crumpled up like the ones I have and about worn out, banks give them back to the Federal Reserve Bank, and they get new bills in exchange for them. So there's a lot of money there. You can buy buy, or they might give away, I don't know, Fed shreds, is what they think they call them. They'll take, a whole bag of shredded up 20s or something. It's like as I say, it's like a crossword or a puzzle. You go on, kids, we're going to put this together. But anyway, the Federal Reserve Bank, there's 12 of them across the country. Each district has its own. Ours is in Chicago. If you've ever been in Chicago on LaSalle Street, on Christmas lights or something, you normally get dropped off on Michigan Avenue. You'd have to go, Candy's telling you to be there. We have people standing in front of this bank today, right there on the corner. But anyway, it's on LaSalle Street, end of the street tees in, and right on the right is the Federal Reserve Bank. But don't think I'm going to get my checking account there. I'll be, kind of a special. No, you can't. If you're a bank, you could borrow money from them and things. But so there's 12 of these things across the country. These banks facilitate all the transactions we do at a bank. If you write a check here for your school bill and your money is back in Florida, right? You write a check from your bank in Florida, you give it to us, we take it to our bank, they take it to the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve gets the money from your bank and gives it to our bank. So they facilitate all that type of transaction. It was done fine beforehand, but they help with all that type of thing. And now with they don't even physically move the checks anymore. It's all done electronically. If you've ever written a check at Walmart, any of you guys ever do that? That's pretty antiquated, but if you want to, write a check at Walmart, they'll scan it and hand it back to you. It's zapped electronically out of your checking instantly. So instead of, used to physically take the check, take it to their bank, that bank would take it to the Federal Reserve, they would send it down to the bank it came from, and the money would come back, and there was a delay. Now it's done instantly. But anyway, all those types of transactions are facilitated with these Federal Reserve banks. All right, the third piece is the Open Market Committee. The Open Market Committee. Maybe I should just tell you what this thing does and save explaining why in a second. Open Market Committee. This committee performs open market operations. Does that help? They buy or sell government bonds and other items. If you get a U.S. savings bond, a bond basically is where you're giving money. You could buy a bond from a major corporation. You give them some money. They give you a certificate saying that, we owe you $1,000. We're going to pay you 8% interest per year, and in 20 years you'll get your money or something. They buy and sell these bonds, this Open Market Committee. It just meets 8 times a year, and they meet, and then they analyze if they should buy or sell more of these things. We'll talk about what they're trying to analyze there. They're trying to regulate the skaters on the skating rink. I mean, it's an impossible job, but that's what they're attempting to do with that Open Market Committee. Okay, so a few of the pieces of that thing. Questions about that? All right, the next thing we need to talk about, and let me at least just, oh no, I'm going to 9:45. I'm about to dismiss you guys early. I'm sorry. I would hate to, I know you want to punish those who are gone. All right, and this isn't for you. It's to punish them. All right. Let's talk about how this Federal Reserve system meddles with the economy. How is it able to drive the interest rate down to where it is today, and other things. All right, there's 3 of these that we're going to talk about. These are the 3 primary ones. And I think we can understand the gist of it. Again, all of these things, like anywhere, there's significant complications below the surface. Become an economist, and you can learn all the fancy terms and come and talk to me about it, and I'll go, yeah, and miss half of it. But there are significant complications that we're not going to worry about. But I think the basics of it we can understand. All right, the three ways we're going to talk about are the reserve requirement, the discount rate, and open market policy. Open market policy comes out of that Open Market Committee. Reserve requirement, the discount rate, and the open market policy. Okay, the first one, reserve requirement. This one has not been used in recent decades, really. It's been fixed, I think, for about 20 years. But what it is, it's the amount of money banks have to actually keep on hand. Let's do a Sarah. I'm going to cough or something. Let's say that Sarah takes $1,000 to, should we pick on somebody else here? Like the McGovern State Bank?
Sure.
You're one of those evil bankers. Can't you see that? All right. So the bank gets $1,000. She is required to keep a certain amount of that actually there, physically on the property. That's called the reserve requirement. The Federal Reserve dictates this. Before the Federal Reserve dictated, it was up to banks. And it would be something, when you went to the bank, you'd want to inquire a little bit. The government really has made it so that we can be stupid and not really think. All right. If you went to a bank that said, I'm not going to keep any of your money. I'm going to loan it out to everybody. You might say, I don't know that I want to give my money to you. Right? But some people might. And you might want to go to a bank where they keep half of it. But anyway, right now it's about 10%. So let's say she's got to keep $100. That's required reserves out of that 1,000. How much is left that she doesn't actually have to keep on hand? $900. All right, so she's got $900 here that's extra, so to speak. Extra. So she can loan that money out to people, she can invest it, she can buy stocks with it, she can do other things with it. If you're wondering how can a bank give away free checking and pay for that great big structure, and all the fancy things inside of it, it's because they take your money and they invest it and they do things with it. There's also fees and things that they charge, but that's how they make their money. All right, so she can take that $900 and invest it, do other things with it. Let's pretend Jacob comes and borrows the money from her at 15% interest. Jacob really needs the money. That bread is on sale for $500. He's going to buy 3 of them and sell them for $8,000 each, and then who cares? All right, so Jacob is going to get his $900, and just for sake of illustration, let's say he puts it back in the bank, in your bank. So now of that $900, you've got to keep $90 in reserve, and how much then is extra? What'd you say? $810. You want to borrow that as well? You could borrow your own money back. But anyway, that reserve requirement, the amount they actually have to keep on hand. Now, if you're thinking with me, we started with $1,000, and we now have $1,900. Who put the 1,000 in? Sarah's got $1,000 on her checkbook, and Jacob's got $1,000 in his checkbook. And all that was ever really deposited was $1,000. We just have it circulating. So anyway, there's some, you might look at that and kind of scratch your head. Don't worry about that. But that 10% dictates this. Right? If the Federal Reserve raised that to 50%, then she'd be required to keep $500, and only $500 then could be loaned out or done other things with. Does that make sense? So by raising or lowering this reserve requirements, they can force more money to stay at the banks, or they can push it out into the economy. They don't actually make the money disappear, but they can put more money out into use, or they can pull it back in by raising or lowering this thing. Okay. Now that has not been done recently, but it is a way that they can do this, and they have in the past adjusted that thing. Okay, does that make sense? This effect here is called the money multiplier effect. And it's part of what liberals justify the stimulus package and other things with. They'll say, look, if we give $1 billion to everybody, they're going to take it and they're going to put it in the bank, and the bank's going to loan it out, and that $1 billion is going to turn into $4 or $5 billion. And pretty much when liberals start talking, just shut it off. Don't even listen. So there is some real truth to this idea, a sliver of it, but not like they take it. So, okay, so the Federal Reserve, they can raise that thing that will pull money out of the economy and force it to be stuck in your vaults, and that's when we have the Scrooge McDuck. You're diving, swimming through the cash in your vault. Okay, the next one is the discount rate. The discount rate. Well, let's leave it as discount rate. This is the interest rate that the Federal Reserve charges banks. When Rachel, no. Don't make me guess. Oh, look. Bethany, I was getting there. One of the McGoverns. When Bethany runs out of cash, Sarah put her $1,000 in. Jacob borrowed 900 of it, and he's out at Cabela's buying the Berettas. And Sarah comes back and she says, I need $500. Bethany's in trouble. Okay, so she would go to the Federal Reserve, borrow $400 from them, and the interest rate that they're going to charge her is this discount rate. Okay, so the Federal Reserve can raise or lower that interest rate wherever they want to. They cannot directly tell her what to charge, what price she has to charge for money, what her interest rate needs to be. But if she's borrowing money from the Federal Reserve at 5%, when she loans that money out, she's got to beat 5%. So the Federal Reserve can raise or lower this discount rate, and that's going to indirectly then raise or lower the rate that banks charge. Right? This rate has been down at 0. I think they might have just bumped it up a little bit so that you got charged no interest. That's a pretty good deal. I'll borrow a whole lot of money at 0% interest. We give Christina $1,000, and next year she just gives us the $1,000 back. It's hard to lose. All right. So that's been kept very, very low. They were trying to artificially push the price of money down by keeping this discount rate very, very low. It was back when I got my first mortgage around 6.5%, and they've just bumped it down and down and down. About 1%, we'll look at the example probably next class period, is when we get the Great Recession and the housing market bubble collapse and all of that. And then to fix that problem, they continue to lower the interest rate down to basically 0. They did just recently bump it, I think, to 0.5 or something like that, which that's still a pretty good deal. Okay, so the discount rate, they can affect the interest rate here indirectly by raising or lowering this thing. Does that make some sense? That's a different question. Do you understand? I think it makes sense. Do you understand? All right, the third one. And here we need to put our thinking caps on. Or maybe borrow your friends or something. All right, open market policy. Open market policy. All right, this is the government buying or selling government bonds. Here, let me. The easiest way to think about this is to think about the money. This open market committee, they could at some point decide. Here, Jacob. You have a $5 government bond. Don't worry about the fact that it talks about something else on there. It's a $5 government bond. If this open market committee and this open market policy decides to buy back government bonds, what they're going to do is take money and give it to Jacob, somebody in the economy, and take back this piece of paper that's not really money. All right, and now there's $5 extra floating around in the economy that I'm going to sell this bond back to you. Okay, so when they are buying bonds, they are releasing currency into the economy. Right? If you follow where the money's going, don't think of the Federal Reserve as not part of the economy. They're just, they're these lords in some high tower watching over top of us. They're not part of the economy. So when they buy these things back, they're taking back a piece of paper and giving you a different piece of paper that they claim is money. Okay? If they do the opposite, if they think there's too much money in circulation, they'll sell bonds. Right? And then they pull the currency back to the Federal Reserve and it's no longer in circulation. So now they do not have the power to force you to sell yours, but they will go out and actively seek and try to buy these things back, or they'll just try to sell more. They offer them freely in the market, but they will intentionally buy more back or intentionally sell a whole bunch, trying to expand or contract the money supply. Yes?
So I don't know if it's ever been done, but did people turn in a certain number of bonds and then somebody else tried to turn into a bond and they wouldn't accept it because they said, oh, well, the Federal Reserve is already meeting taxes this month or something?
That's a good, I really don't know.
Because I had some bonds from when I was a kid and
I think for us, we're going to go to the bank and trade them in.
so it never really affects them.
No, this would be more,
Super rich people.
or a major, it'd be Bethany's bank.
Okay. Yeah.
The rich, evil people.
Here.
She's not evil because she's rich. That was a pre-existing condition. She's just evil. She's an evil person that happens to be rich. So, okay, so open market policy. Buying or selling bonds can expand the money supply or contract the money supply. You guys want to delve into the
Why one paper is better than another paper?
yeah, that's a good question. So, all right, next time we will probably retouch that a little bit. And then I want to look at an example of the Great Recession in 2008 and look at government policy that got us to that point and try to understand maybe a little bit in a real life example. So, all right, we'll see you then.